Good morning, everyone. Microphone check. Screen check. Looks like everything's working correctly here. Wonderful. I like that. That's a good thing. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up over the weekend, enjoy the weekend, and come into today all rested, refreshed, and relaxed and ready to rock and roll. Just a quick note for you all before we jump on in. On the left side of the screen there, the Live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. So make sure to read through that. Please keep in mind that the YouTube broadcast does have between a 5 and 30-second delay, depending on where you're logging in from, which can definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at the time. I also just wanted to take a second to give a shout out to our latest members that joined overnight or over the weekend. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG fam. If you aren't a member yet, you have a few different options to check out if you are looking to further your trading education and career. Here on YouTube, you can check out the join button below the stream. The YouTube fam gains access to the extended hours trade room, which continues on from the morning session here from 10 to 11 o'clock. Every member gains permanent access to Discord, as well as, of course, you get that, that cool little badge next to your name here on YouTube, which shows your support and it just looks cool. To understand our trading approach and what I'm doing every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. Listen, this is for serious traders looking for, a way to further their career. This isn't a lightweight PDF guide that you're going to finish in an afternoon. You're talking 19 plus hours of course material and study material and homework and review. So you best tuck in if you're looking to go in that route. And then finally, the big kahuna, the Mac Daddy, the VIP. VIPs have exclusive permanent access to our non-delayed stream, covering the entire morning session from 9 to 11 to ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible and that you don't miss any beats. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to our monthly VIP webinars, which will actually be coming up, next weekend, I think? Private VIP events, one-on-one scheduling, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're a seasoned VIP veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside me today and analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Let's take a look at some news, take a look at some charts, see what's going on for today, and kind of get an idea and gauge what all is happening here. So looking at, first off, grabbing your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning, covering the major 7. I forgot to underline stuff. That makes it a little more difficult to see. Oh well. We've got those posted for you there. And then, where did my news go? Uh-oh. Hang on. I gotta get my news thing back. There we go. All right, so as far as the news for today, we don't have any. There were some very small, medium news announcements, theinvesting.com stuff earlier this morning at 1:30. 9:45 has the ISM New York business conditions, rather. It's all small and medium news announcements. There's nothing big going on here, so nothing to really worry about from that perspective. My cat is going to give me a... Hang on. Ziggy, get down, dude. What are you doing? Jeez. Just crawling across my keyboard here. Anyway, so as far as the news calendar goes, we don't have anything to worry about there, so we can get rid of that. Looking at the bigger picture and kind of working our way in on the NASDAQ, we have had a higher low. Very obvious. And with that higher low, notably, that is also an L5. You don't really have to draw it to see that, but it's an L5 down at those lows, and that does mean that it is a viable potential trend reversal. Most reversals happen on L5s, L4s, sometimes L3s if they're really strong. But that's about it. So we've got this higher low coming off the bottom. It's got continuation. We have a very nice breakout above the previous high. I don't know why my Zoom it's not working. Hang on. Does it work now? There we go. So it has a very nice break above that previous high, and now we are pulling back and retesting it. It's a zone of support. Buyers are going to be trying to get this to rotate back up again, and they want to see it continue back up to, especially above those 13,825s or so, just to break above the top and prove it. Going beyond that, we do have that kind of descending wedge, which is working its way in here. Might mean that it's a bit early. Might have to have the breakout, pull back, then continue. Either way, though, buyers are going to be looking to try to pick up a dip at least. If we look at this from the top to the bottom with that higher low, actually, let's do before the higher low first. Or not, that's fine too. My data's bugged, so I can't do that one. Cool. All right. So, as far as the POC goes, from the higher low, they weren't able to change anything, although you can see they definitely made an attempt right there. We've broken above that area, and if the market's going to migrate higher, we're kind of backfilling this previous VVP that was over here, kind of job done. If they are going to continue back up again, that 13,905 is going to be the major zone of interest. That's where, assumably, all of the longs who were trying to buy into this pullback over here, they got dumped on. Absolutely dumpstered, and their average was 13,905. We haven't seen the POC shift. We haven't seen any signs that they've built in heavily enough to shift their average. So more likely what they've done down here is accumulated a bit, but not enough to make much of a difference in terms of their average, which means that this 905 becomes a major zone of resistance. We'll see if they want to get up there and hit it. Notably, that would also be from a negative half DP all the way up to a positive 1. So it's a dynamic 1.5 move. That's a pretty big deal. Tom, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I will get that for you. I forgot about it too, so, you know. It's good. It's a good thing that I understand how my memory works, I guess. Looking on the S&P, we've got some continuation back to the upside, and this obviously does have a higher low as well, but it's a little bit of a different scenario. This is on that verge of an L4, basically an L3. I mean, all it was a wick on a 15-minute candle that hit the L4. And then reversed all the way back up to a new high. Extremely strong breakout through the highs, and this continues up along with the trend. This is proof. Buyers have been given proof that this trend is, in fact, continuing, right? This is what they needed to see. So given that the overall movement that they've got going on from this low, weren't really sure, you know, is this an actual trend break? Maybe, you know, kind of, sort of, maybe, sure. But as we gained a lot more proof, it's fairly obvious that sellers realized, okay, we're not winning this one. Let's get this back down here. They gave it one more shot, 2 more shots, 3, 4, 5, and then they gave up. And now we're rolling back to the upside. So a lot of this momentum is not only buyers buying into the market, but it's also sellers giving up. And we can see that in this big blow-off move. Nobody's willing to come into the market against it right now, or at least there and on this next breakout and potentially on the next one. Maybe not as much up here because it is beginning to get extended. But we're seeing some very obvious clues that sellers just aren't willing to come in yet. And they're probably going to need a little bit further up before that actually happens. Over on gold, I mean, what a rally. The concern that we were talking about from non-farms last week was that the high and low of that candle, which goes for all of the markets, was going to be a level of support resistance. Well, it took over the weekend and into the most of the morning session of Monday, but they finally got there, and they tapped it, and sure enough, it was a really strong area of resistance that rotated all the way back down. That doesn't mean that it's going to cycle all the way back down to the bottom, but if it is going to pull back, what better spot to pull back from than right there? That's what stopped the entire non-farm move to the upside. There's obviously something there, and now that we've made it all the way back up there again after the entirety of the weekend, a lot of traders are obviously hitting the exits, and that could definitely cause that cascade to get down to the lows. It doesn't mean to give up on the bull side. It just means that I want to be a bull cheaper. Got to get that discount. On crude oil, we've got some fairly okay, I guess, continuation to the upside. We've got a bit of a gap over the weekend, which throws things off a little bit. But generally speaking, it's a fairly obvious trend with a near miss on the lows. Obviously an L5. I mean, if there was an L6, that would be it. We've got a really big continuation to the upside. It broke above the highs. Kind of sketchy over here. They gained a lot more proof, and then a lot of sellers realized it was time to jump ship, finally pull back to allow the rest of them out around that break-even point, which it did reverse up very aggressively from. From there, now we've rotated back up to the highs, and a lot of buyers will look for that third move to the upside, right? You've got the first one up, second one up, third one up, which usually isn't as strong, closer to a double top, maybe even a lower high, but somewhere up there is what buyers are looking for. And if they're not able to get it on this higher low, typically they're going to hunt for that next low, which is sub 63s. We've been talking about that for a while, but that would be the zone of interest for buyers to kick back off of on those lows and drive the market back up, right? Fair value, if you will. Plus, they've got some gap to fill from the weekend. Makes it a bit awkward. If we look at the overall volume on that last pullback from top to bottom, yeah, that looks really nice to at least get back down to 63, 64. This could get real interesting if they can get another leg down on crude. The euro screaming all the way back up to the upside. They finally made their way out of that wedge. Got the break, barely a break pullback. I mean, it just kind of broke and spike and channel and just kept going. Now that we have this higher high, bulls have even more proof. A lot of traders are going to be pretty nervous to buy this initial reversal, right? Especially seeing the euro dump off of the highs. They know overall it's a bull trend, sure. But the fact that we're kind of hovering around this 1.2 and messing around, it's tough. And then we load into today and we see that it's screamed all the way up to the upside, and there really wasn't much of a pullback. Even from the bottom. Typically you like seeing, L4s, L5s. They had an L1. I mean, if we go all the way down to the lows in that wedge, they had an L5. But that was before they actually made a higher high. So, man, it's kind of funky up here. As we continue, we've got the L1, another L1, and another L1 after near missing the next L1. Obviously, this is very aggressively bullish. My concern is that now that we've broken above the highs, a lot of buyers who are buying into this value dip are going to be taking profit up here, and that could cause a deeper pullback. Buyers are going to be looking at this thinking, oh, L1 trend, I'm going to buy the next L1. But realistically, what we're seeing here, and given the context, I just don't think that makes sense. It'd be much better to let those L1 buyers try to come in, get a second leg down, stop them all out, just to dry up all of their orders directly into the buyers buying the deeper L2. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that makes a lot more sense from a value perspective. I don't want to be a buyer way the heck up here. And even the L1 is a bit tough. That's at 21,600. So I've got to see a deeper pullback down to at least 21,300. Over on Bitcoin, mostly sideways. Still seeing a lot of consolidation, and a lot of it is driven off of the concern of the flippening, right? But the Bitcoin dominance factor drying up and Ethereum taking over, and as we can see, Ethereum in a second here is over 4,000. It's just screaming, right? I mean, the market's rallying aggressively higher, and the first time, like we've been talking about for like 2 weeks now, the first time that it actually pulled back underneath a confirmed swing, I got gobbled up and rocketed straight back to the high again. Eventually, there will be a bigger pullback on the crypto markets. But right now, for Bitcoin at least, we're kind of sideways. We're consolidated. And that's actually kind of a good thing. Because realistically, Ethereum is screaming higher. Bitcoin's just kind of chilling. It's not really screaming backward. It's not really pulling higher. It's just kind of hanging out. And that's nice, because when Ethereum does start pulling back, because it will, I promise you, it will, the next pullback is probably going to be 20 to 30, maybe even 40%. Ethereum does tend to be a little bit deeper. So whether it's a flash pullback or it takes a month, regardless, the fact that Bitcoin is remaining relatively calm and stagnant allows all of the buyers who are accumulating Ethereum, when it does start pulling back and they jump ship, where do you think they're going to jump ship into? Well, Bitcoin. It's pretty stable now. What do you think that's going to do for Bitcoin? It's not going to keep it very stable. We're probably going to see that start rallying up, and that'll be the break above 60,000. And it's beautiful the way that it's setting up, because you've got that major psychological level at 60. We've talked about how Bitcoin loves going in 20s, right? Stopped at 20, then went to 40, broke above, went to 60. Now we're kind of hovering. That's a perfect spot to launch through. And if it does, where's it going? Probably 80. It's all right in the same spot. Super interesting price action going on here between the two. Who would have thought Bitcoin ends up being a shelter market? Crazy. Looking at Ethereum, again, they continue this incredible rally to the upside. The only time that it actually broke any major swing was right there. And that was it. That was the only time they broke a major swing since the 25th. There were a bunch of little minor ones. And a lot of those were actually higher lows. Lots of these small little inside swings. That's it, though. I mean, as far as major swing breaks, there has not been very many at all, depending on your data provider, on Coinbase at least. On Binance, I think there's a low here, but barely any. This thing just keeps screaming to the upside. Like I said, eventually there will be a pullback. Typically when we're talking Ethereum, the pullbacks tend to be a bit aggressive. We'll have to see what they want to do from that perspective. But and then let me switch over to Trading View over here. And let's take a look at wheat. Specifically, July. There we go. Okay. So as far as the wheat N21 contract goes, I mean, first off, it's fairly obvious. Like when you zoom out to a daily chart, that wheat is doing incredibly well. it's rallying very aggressively higher. And if we take this even further and go out to the continuous contract, this is a major breakout point that's breaking out above a huge amount of consolidation. You can see this wedge that's been descending for a very long time. Breakout, pullback, find a base, find a base, find a base. Sellers give up. We're just in the beginning phases of the sellers giving up. I mean, realistically, this is side note, incredibly obvious spot for wheat to find resistance, right? I mean, I don't think it needs to be said. This is the peak before that, right after that giant drop lower. That was the balance point, right? Duh. Yeah, of course they're going to find balance here. Realistically, if they are going to pull back, this would be the point that they would pull back from. That would make the most sense. But given this continuation of the upside in this, like I said, this could very easily just be the beginning phases of this. And if we look at this move from top to the eventual bottom on September 16, September of 16, jeez, oh Pete, going back a ways here. I'm trying to pull data from a weekly perspective covering like 7 years. We might need to give TradingView a second here to kind of catch that one. I'll see if it can populate. But while I'm waiting for that, let's go over the NASDAQ here. On the daily, we've got the bounces on the NASDAQ. Where we've got some incredible support off the L2, rising channel support. They close underneath the channel, immediately close back up. We've got all the proof in the world that buyers are trying to get this going back to the upside. The only problem is I don't want to be a buyer way the heck up at the highs. So if we're looking at this down from the top to the bottom in kind of a consideration as to where traders may be coming in, that might also take a minute. Is this loaded? No? How about bump it out a little further? A little further? Okay, well, it doesn't want to load this. So I can't see where the volume came in. Realistically, if we just use a little bit of common sense, there's a huge amount of congestion around here. I would be willing to guess, without seeing the actual order flow, that the POC's probably somewhere between 540 and 500, maybe 480, somewhere down there, unless something crazy happened. If yours works, maybe you can let me know, but mine won't. It just sits there doing nothing. So as far as this continuation of the upside, realistically, I would be looking for a value pullback. If we're looking at a value pullback from a daily, that's going to be a totally different view than looking at it from like an hourly, as an example. Because a value pullback, you're talking a 29% drop. Right? That's no small pullback. We're talking wheat 29% drop would put it back at 539. That's a not feel good at all pullback. But if buyers are willing to come back in and look for a deeper dip, what better spot for them to buy in if they miss the initial rally? It's right back in that congestion again. So it does make a lot of sense for a value pullback if it's going to dip that far. That's a daily though. If we look back on something like maybe a 15-minute zoomed out a little further with, let's look at a 60 first. The last time we had a pullback, which realistically, they still haven't broken above the highs. That last pullback was about 7.5%. What was the last actual pullback before that, though? Right there. So from top to bottom, that was 14.2%. So even on the 15-minute or the hourly, zooming out a little bit, I would still much prefer seeing it down in like the 661s, 660s. Somewhere down there, just so that it's more in a value-sided pullback from the longer-term perspective. Like if I wanted to buy it and hold it for a month, that would be the mentality where it's so much better value down there than where it is now. That said, it might not dip back there, so you just might not get it. That's the risk. Now, looking in the even nearer term, zooming into the 15-minute and kind of seeing what's going on the closer structure, we can see that the last attempted breakout move was this rally up, failed down. I don't want to say totally failed because as soon as it hit the lows, that thing never came back and rolled all the way up to a new high. So that leads me to believe that a lot of sellers were probably, well, first off, a lot of buyers were probably trying to buy this pullback. Let's be fair. And then it screamed underneath them, stops them all out. Maybe they bought more on the dip. But along with that, this giant drop created a new low. A lot of sellers will be looking to try to push that back down. and they got dumped on. So we've got kind of a multitude of traps going on here. If we look at this move up to down, just on the first pullback portion, we can see what happened. They built their average right around the middle. They lost their grip underneath the middle, and they stopped liking it for, I don't know, whatever reason. Throw a reason. It doesn't really matter. But what we can see is proof. They gave up. They came back to break even, and they dumped it. They didn't want it anymore. I don't know why, but they didn't want it. C'est la vie, right? There it goes. All the way down through the lows. So when it starts going underneath that area, my assumption then is that all the buyers who were in gave up, and all the sellers who, well, were in, they were right, and it worked. They got it all the way down to the lows. Obviously, they took profit. So when the market's coming back from this low, I have to assume that those are probably sellers trying to get this to move back down. If we look at the initial pullback, it was way down to the bottom. That doesn't help anybody. So if sellers were trying to sell it for a breakdown, they definitely didn't give it enough time, and they were given a chance to get out of break even multiple times, actually. That's what that bounce was on the low. If we increase this to the new high, though, oh, they didn't even change their average there. That's probably why they gave up. When it went up to a new high, they didn't even add to it. Just they got out. Nah, no thanks. So sellers who were trying to get it to go lower, it seems like they ducked. They got out of the way. The only other scenario that we could look for is a trend continuation play on this last pullback that the buyers might be dipping down to. And in terms of support, that is a monster. 753 on wheat. That's a huge zone of defensive support. That's the breakout point of the previous structure. That's the wedge breakout pullback retest. That's right around the L3, L4 transition, which is what a trend needs for a reversal. And it's also a retest of previous value in the POC. That's the money right there. That's the one that I would rather pay attention to over anything else. Right around 735. I don't know if it'll get there, but that would be the hope, I guess. All right, there we go. And now we have that that POC on the top while the market's pulling back. If they were trying to buy high, it didn't work. They got slammed on and totally obliterated. If the market's going to come back up, they have not built a new down-weighted POC. There's nothing down here to suggest that buyers have accumulated much enough to shift the POC. To be fair, though, it is demonstrating accumulation volume. So when it goes back up to those highs, 13,905, that's a big spot that a lot of those buyers who got stuck up at the top, they're going to want to get out. If we can get a deeper pullback, I would still love to see it challenge those 12,820s. Just don't know if it's going to pull back that far. Yeah, not a problem. Over on the NASDAQ, looking at the 60-minute chart now, zooming in a little bit closer and seeing what's going on. In the grand scheme of things, we can kind of see there's some good things and some bad things happening here. We've got a very nice reversal off of the lows. That's a nice, good thing, nice and strong. But the concern is that it was off of an L3. Okay, that could be a little bit better, right? That could be a little nicer. Typically, L4s are the preference, and it didn't quite hit it. What was it on the daily? I think it did. It was a wick. But that was based on the close being a little bit further up. And on here, we don't have that. An L3 is still applicable, but typically after an L3, when it goes into an L1 trend, it'll get the deeper pullback to L2, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go back up to the highs. It's usually going to find a bit of a challenge up there, if anything. And given that we already know the POC is top-weighted, that's going to make it even more challenging. Buyers are trying to get it to go back up. We've got some very nice higher-low support in the near term. We'll get to that in a minute on the 15. And looking at it in continuation, we've kind of held that zone of support on the channel lows. A retest back down to test not only the bottom of L1, but also a value pullback on the 15, which we'll find in a second. And channel lows, I mean, everything is lining up almost perfectly for just a little lower, right? Give a dip down into like the 13,590s, 580s. That's where swings will be coming in. Obviously, if they can get down to the 13,470s, that's even better. If it starts breaking below the 400s, though, they might be hunting for that L4 to try to make this a bit healthier, especially with that nasty high on top. zooming in a little bit closer to the 15-minute now and kind of seeing what's going on. Again, the first assumption on this drive down is that sellers would be trying to get this to rotate lower. It would make sense. So if we're looking at it from that perspective first, let's go from bottom to top and see what the impulse move was. The majority of volume came in at the bottom. Well, it's hard to say that those were sellers then. Realistically, it looks like it was just profit taking underneath the low. We do have accumulation up to this point, but not enough to shift the POC. So if sellers were trying, it wasn't enough to win a fight. It went all the way back down to the lows, rebounced off that POC, and they kind of found more balance, continued higher. I can't really give them that fight. Sellers lost before the fight even started. So, oh well. Now that we've got that higher low, I guess we'll go a little further and kind of see. All right, they finally were able to downweight the POC over here after that dramatic failure from the sellers. And nice rotation off the bottom. So, I mean, it does have what it needs. It just, man, it would really fit nice for a quick little blow off on the lows, flush down, grab that L4, L3, healthy reversal off those 470s. Ooh, man. Please? As far as this pullback goes from the... I hate the way that it looks from the top because that's the NFPs. If we go from the high that has been created so far, we've got a bottom-weighted POC at 13,670. If we continue back from what happened from the technical high, the POC is a lot higher at 730. Bit messy. All right. And here we sit. Got 928 right around the corner. 928 is usually when a lot of volatility starts stepping up. Keep in mind that today at 10 o'clock is that's when we'll shift over to the extended hours session for you YouTube members and VIPs. You guys should have seen a link posted in the community board for that. If you're on the VIP side, just stay in the Zoom room. You don't have to do anything. There's no change. You just, the perk of being a VIP, you don't have to move around. But for YouTube members who are members, we are doing an extended hours session later today, starting from 10 o'clock until whenever it ends, 11 or so. So this morning session will end up at 10. Just a heads up. We've got a minute 15 till we hit the open right around the corner. Man, my shoulder is still sore. I was trying to show my son yesterday the true time where you realize how old you're actually getting. And I'm not old by any means, but you just realize your age, one of those moments, you know. My son has a scooter, and I jumped on it. I was like, I'm going to jump this curb. I'm gonna be the cool dad. I'll show you. Totally ate it, jumping over the stupid curb. Luckily, I know how to fall, right? Years of skateboarding and stuff, but my body was not able to take it like back when I was 18, you know? Sheesh. I feel like I hit by a truck last night. Getting old. Open right around the corner in 30 seconds. Like, and a scooter, no less. Like, it's those little wheels, man. I'm so wibbly wobbly. US session to Euro session is obviously downtrending very nicely. Good continuation lower, but we are stuck in a range very badly at the moment. Forever Accident Pro, yeah, for sure. I think it's just like, if you're willing to take the risk, you have to be okay with, you know, eating it sometimes. It's just, it's that reality check, like, hey, idiot, you're 34. You shouldn't be jumping curbs with scooters. Oh, well, I'm still going to try. Just don't put a half pipe in front of me. It's been too long. ER, here we come. Nice continuation to the downside. We've got further momentum starting from the Asian session, which would be the high technically speaking. We've got a nice trend. We've got an L1 continuation trend, deeper pullback into the L2. Kind of V bottom-ish, a little aggressive and kind of gross looking, but overall got the job done. Rolling lower now. Oh no. What a wicked POC that thing is. Jeez. 642.50, massive POC on the low. No wonder it was bouncing around there so long. We have now broken through it. So sellers are going to be looking for a continuation resistance there. They'd likely change things a little bit once it finally broke through, but that's crazy. All right, big old continuation to the downside. S&P driving down to lows as well. Whoa, whoa, no, no, no. That's not the right size. There we go. I'm not jumping the ship with 10. No thanks. See if we can get a little more pop back up towards those 630, 650s. The 640, 250s are obviously the bigger area of interest if they can pop back up there. And as far as the S&P is concerned, I mean, honestly, I have to assume that initially some buyers were probably buying into that pullback on both the NASDAQ and the S&P, actually. Buying into that pullback, assuming that it was going to try to go a bit further up. It's not working in their favor, though. $27.25 on a potential rejection on the S&P. For now, at least. For a quick little 4-tick. NASDAQ still fresh out of the open. We're still in scalp territory. I don't think I'm going to get that pullback on the S&P here, huh? Bottom of the Euro session on the S&P, speaking of which. We are now down below the previous... we're down below the previous bull bar on the NASDAQ. From a swing perspective, for calls, for options, for out-of-the-monies, etc., demonstrating any low support down here or early support, this is going to be a really big zone of interest because buyers are going to want to turn this into a bull engulfing candle today. Obviously, it's super early. This is the first flush, and it's right at the open, and you're buying while the knife is falling. So, you know, have some gloves on or something, and maybe keep the risk a little bit light, or wait, or you know, keep your risk in check. But this is a major zone of interest for buyers to be buying into the dip. This is that BTFD territory. Still haven't pulled back yet on the S&P. I want to see a snapback to 27.25, but if it takes a little too long, then realistically, we're kind of down to the bottom of the range here. And I would much rather start converting over to a buyer if they show too much support. We do have the first 5-minute bar in. Lordy. $87.25. $87.25 is the POC for the NASDAQ. Ooh, sellers going to be looking for a little more continuation here. If they can get... I mean, sellers will sell underneath that bear bar too, but I would much rather sell in a retest back up towards those 575s if they can get it up there. I hit the button. I don't know if you heard that. But my shortcut didn't work. God. My keyboard works and it doesn't work. Never spill anything on your keyboard. I thought I was good. Then I go through this like once or twice a week where it just doesn't want to work, and it's always at the worst time. All right, there we go. Restarted Synapse. Does it work? Yes. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, it's a mechanical keyboard. It's the the Razer Chroma, I don't know, some crazy whatever keyboard that has all the fancy RGBs and all that, which I should know better with kids, you know, but it was destined to catch a juice pouch or something. I just like the mechanical ones, especially from Razer, because the switches pop off super easy, and then you just, you know, air hose it out and you're good. Sellers trying to reverse back down underneath the lows. S&P still has not pulled back, although we're seeing a huge amount of volume starting to build down here in the 2250s. I mean, I know we're looking at the 5-minute chart, and this is always a little bit awkward, but you can see it building right there. And that's right at the Euro lows. Still waiting for that 27.25 pullback. See if they can get back there. The first 5. I thought he did the first 5 for the S&P. I guess I didn't. It's not like it matters. Same spot. Fair enough. All right, now the POC has shifted down to 22.25. So unfortunately, I can't sell 27.25. You can, but it doesn't have to stop there anymore. Buyers have shifted it enough to put their POC at the lows, and they're fighting over it. Essentially, what that means is, from a sell-side perspective, I still want to be a seller. The trend is obviously down in the short term, but I want to sell at a little bit of a better price. It's giving us some warnings that some larger potential pullbacks are around the corner. Sellers trying to come back down again on a very nice bear bar. And that's also a secondary rejection on that volume node. So if sellers, man, that was a really fast slide. I hit the ask, but it slid down really fast. I want to see if they can pop back up above the 555s. There we go. Nice quick little jump back up into that zone. Really? The second after I exit? Oh, you rotten pecker. That thing was looking like it was starting to reverse. They had to close back up. It was really feisty around that break even, so I lightened the load like a millisecond after I exited. Ugh. Never fails, huh? Every time. All right, you rotten bugger. S&P... They're hovering around the 2250s. That's the POC at the bottom right now, which they're trying to hold. Now, this quick little rifle higher here might be an excuse for sellers to re-enter. Especially if it rifles back up to those like 56s, 57s. That's not it. Oh no, bull engulfing candle. Well, not quite engulfing. It's a doji. Great success. Super heavy top weighted POC up at 549 right now. Now they're trying to shift it to 43.25 and hold as support. Sellers just don't want to sell this far down. They're just not being given much else of a choice, really. POC cluster at 43.25 acting as resistance initially. That could suggest that earlier sellers who were trying to sell are getting out at break even. Let's see if they're able to at least close underneath. Okay, they were able to close underneath, so they're back in the territory again. See if they can dip back to that 43.25 area. Just a quick little pop up there. They immediately closed above. I'm going to look to exit on that pullback. I didn't want to see that. What I wanted to see was, and nobody else wanted to see that, obviously. I wanted to see it hit it with a quick wick and then turn down and close that right back lower again. I tried to take as good of a value trade as I could, but it just didn't want to go, and it wasn't worth the risk. I'd rather take like a 3-tick loss than, well, I don't know, whatever it'd be now, 20, 30? No thanks. POC bottom weighting even further now on the S&P at 2175. They're trying to put a low in. Technically, that did make a new low, so let's put that over there. Oh, no. Sellers got really slam-a-jam down there. Nice bear bar off the top. If the sellers are going to take it, that's the kind of candle they'll do it off of. You see that volume step up real fast underneath that bear bar? They're trying. Sellers taking it back below the 550s. How do they close this candle? Very nice separation away. See if they can get a snap rejection off those 550s for a pushback lower again. I want to see a move back down towards, yeah, actually, right about there. That's perfect. Thank you. All right. See, that's the kind of rejection that I wanted. Snap. Immediate. I don't want to sit there like, oh, well, what's it doing? If I had time to think, oh, what's it doing? I'm wrong. These are POC zones. They need to respond. Got 15 minutes left in the morning session, and then we'll roll over to extended hours. Giant bull bar back to the upside. Whoa. I am willing to guess that a lot of the sellers who tried taking it from the 550s are not going to want to be short much longer. They might not even be able to get back to those 550s. How they respond there, I'm going to wait just for a second because I want to see how they respond there more than anything else. An immediate snap down and a close underneath would be an obvious problem. That does mean that I might miss an early entry on a wick. You know, that's the risk. Man, this thing's volatile right now. Just be careful. Snapping down, but nobody's showing up to the party and immediately closes back underneath. So it was a good decision to wait on that one. That POC back up at the 558s, there's just, Let's see if they can climb back above it. Add a bit more context, add a bit more proof. That would be another higher low. The S&P is still struggling over its. There at, what is that, 50? 2250? Yeah. Sellers may try to regain some interest off 58, especially given the struggle bus that the buyers are running into here. A quick little snap higher, especially above that previous inside swing at 57.75, may allow those earlier buyers out. Quick little target and say, all right, thanks, good enough. Or not 58, maybe like 3 ticks earlier. You should know better, right? I mean, when I say a price and if I try to get a fill there, it's going to go like 3 ticks earlier. Zone of support's 550. Buyers have to hold that if they're going to try to reverse this back to the upside. That's where the earlier sellers were a bit kind of dunked, if you will. If we continue this back up to where it's gone now with that new high, it's still back at the 550s. So if the sellers are going to take it, they got to get under it. On the S&P, they're still messing around with this POC. Notably, the one thing that does stand out and very obviously on the S&P is that it's not making lower lows, but it's also not making higher highs either. And if you look in the really, really short term, like a 2,000 tick, a 1,000 tick, a 1 minute, all it's doing is lower highs and equal bottoms. NASDAQ is back above that previous POC at 550. Buyers are trying to rotate it back up again. The last time sellers even had a chance to take it, I guess, that was back at the 596s. Man, there's like no pullback on this entire move, which makes this really awkward. S&P is starting to jolt higher, but the POC has now shifted down to 2170 or 2225, so I have no interest really in going too crazy on the short side. Has ETH gone up to the moon yet? Not yet. Well, yeah, it has, but... All right. 20... I'm going to go a little under this 2175 as a zone of support for buyers to ping it back up. Given the fact that the S&P is much more bullish than the other markets and we're cycling off of a major range low, I like that zone a lot more for a potential continuation bounce. And the fact that they bottom weighted the POC, even if it is wrong and it breaks through, it'll very likely come back for not only an exit, but also a potential reversal to short. So everything just stacks up really nicely around that 22 quarter to 21 area. I like 2175, kind of cut it in the middle. That forces it to get under the Euro session by just a bit. $21.75 hit. Now let's see if they want to give the scalpers their bounce. NASDAQ breaking back through the 550s. That could add a little bit of downside pressure here, although again, the S&P has the POC at the bottom. There you go, ES. Thank you. Target filled on the S&P. Nice little snap back at the lows. Glad we offset a little too, because then we didn't have to take any heat. I'm okay with that. Sellers trying to break back down through the 550s. Tough spot. What do you think about this Bitcoin slide from 59.5? 50, I mean, this whole move down, aside from Ethereum and apparently Doge, which, by the way, fantastic play on Doge. But on Bitcoin, the way that this is moving, I honestly think this is incredibly bullish for Bitcoin, because the market on Ethereum is going absolutely haywire. And the Bitcoin dominance is waning and everybody's freaking out and there's FUD all over the place, but Bitcoin's not pulling down. I mean, it did, don't get me wrong. It's not like it didn't pull down sub 50,000. But, I mean, let's be realistic here. It didn't spend a whole lot of time there. And we're back above those 50Ks. And we can see, very obviously, 50,000 is a massive level of support. So even if it does pull back, that okay, fine. I'm expecting 50,000 to be support again. We're kind of in a range. And we're near the upper bounds of that range. So seeing some profit taking would make sense. I wouldn't want to be a long way up here. But given the fact that Ethereum is still going through the friggin' moon, sorry, I'm talking about it like you can see it. It's off the screen. I promise I'm not insane. Let me move it to the right screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Bitcoin on the hourly is mostly just a range, again, and that 50,000 mark is huge. It's massive support. So, yeah, if it wants to pull back, that's going to be the zone that's probably going to pull back to. We've got a 3-press high. I doubt we even need the MACDs on there, but we're probably seeing divergence across the highs. Yep. Actually, it's been diverging for a long time. So, again, it doesn't tell you to get out or that the trend is done or anything, but it does mean to expect a little bit of a deeper pullback. And, I mean, I think that's fair, you know, given where this thing has gone. Remember, you know, last year where it was trading at 10,000 and everybody thought it was a bubble still? It's got to pull back, you know, get a deeper little dip. They've got a beautiful little trap swing low. So if they're going to pull back, that's the spot. And guess what that lines up with? 50,000. What do you want to bet? We've got some volume sitting around there too. 47. 56. Whoa, okay. And 55. And now they're back above that POC. Man, if the buyers do hold this here, it's off to the races. This thing could go nuts. Could be real interesting. NASDAQ breaks down through the lows. Gotta say, these buyers aren't really proving a whole lot. Sellers continuing to the downside. S&P looking like it's trying to continue to the downside. We're breaking down through the Euro session lows. The last point of interest that we've really got to work with would be over here. Where did they put that in? I mean, that's what it's sitting on top of right now. And they just closed under it. Bulls need to get that thing back up pronto. Finding some resistance here. We got 5 minutes until we wrap up the morning session. So for those of you who are going to be ducking out then. Feel free to get those questions in. For those of you sticking around, at 10 o'clock, we go into the extended hours for YouTube members and VIPs. That'll be from 10 until whenever. So let's get those questions in. We'll hit training time. And then we'll swap over. And then just a side note, while I still have quite a few people here on both sides, I had a really cool idea that I wanted to try to push forward that I thought was kind of neat as far as a giveaway, and I'll do a video on it. But I'm just kind of curious as to what you guys think about it. On the YouTube side of things, we're getting close to the next big milestone, which would be 2,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And that's in order to show an appreciation for you guys and all of the support that you have done and have brought us to that point. I was thinking like every 500 subscribers or so. So like when we hit 2,000, I would do 4 of them to kind of catch back up. But I was looking at giving away like 100% off coupon or something for the Day Trading Academy for whoever wins. But I wanted to take it a step further. If they already had the Day Trading Academy, then they would be given a coupon for a full upgrade to VIP instead. So there's, you know, all the way up. It doesn't matter if you win already, you can still get perks. And if you're already a VIP, then you get a free one-on-one session, and then I redo the redraw. But I thought that would be a really cool way to kind of give back a little bit while the world's still falling apart. It would be a cool way to kind of celebrate moving into 2,000 subs, which is really cool. I want to figure out a way to do like some kind of cool, simple merch, like a hoodie or a mug or something, or I guess a face mask these days. But I'm terrible at art, and my wife's always busy, so the designs I come up with are like, well, I got a logo. I guess I'll copy paste that on there. Yeah, obviously the one big caveat is that you would have to be a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you can't win. It's celebrating subscribers. So, yeah, you got to be a subscriber. If I join the YouTube membership, then that's the extended hours. Yeah, the extended hours were... So I wanted to... I'm trying to balance in flux, and I'm always kind of keeping things changing and moving with the markets and how they're moving. But I wanted to implement a way where I could be more involved with people and have more of a relaxed environment where we can still kind of hang out and scalp, and we can Q&A, and we can talk about things and talk about setups. We don't necessarily have to focus on the NASDAQ. We can focus on a lot of different things. And it's just a way that we can kind of go into more of an extended training time, but we can still sort of scalp, and I can spend more time with members and people of the YouTube fam. So that's kind of the mentality. So we still have the free room from 9 to 10. That's not going to change. I still want to have some openness to allow, and that's probably, I would say, the most important time during the open. So it's just lately, I feel like we should do like a third room at 3 in the morning or something. The Euro session's going freaking crazy. I just wanted there to be more incentive. I'm Dutch. I like there to be perks, you know. I'm cheap. What can I say? I want more bang for the buck, if you will, or to give more bang for the buck. Well, there you go, JT. Welcome. You should be welcome aboard, my friend. You should be getting the as long as I didn't mess up my thing, you should be getting the little thing. Where is it? Well, now, wait a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay. I was going to say, you're going to get a Pikachu, whether it's going to give you one or I have to, but you're going to get a Pikachu. Welcome aboard. Don't forget, too, there is the Discord link, so you can jump on the Discord chat if you're not already on there. I don't remember. Either way, the link is there, so you should be covered one way or the other. It's very kind of generous. I love it. Yeah, and I mean, like, that's always kind of been the idea, is to provide alternatives that aren't incredibly expensive. And I think just doing giveaways and stuff, I mean, to be fair, not from a business perspective, it's not like it costs me anything, but it's also a very highly appreciated thing. And I love bringing new people on board, especially if they're already demonstrating support. Why wouldn't I want to, you know? It's kind of the best of all worlds, if you will. But anyway, that's going to do it for and like I said, I'm gonna do a video that goes over all of that. And there'll be an announcement video so that people have time. I'm not just going to like, oh, tomorrow, better hurry up. Right? It's not. I'll give you some time. Don't worry. But anyway, we're going to swap over to the extended hours for you members. And for those of you who aren't members, I am super appreciative that you were here and trading with me. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, right? For you VIPs on Zoom and on the YouTube side, all you got to do is just join the other link and you should be good to go. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll talk to you all later, all right? Have a good one. Thanks.